The first day of 2018, and we're sort of wondering, what does this year hold in store for me? And I'm joined in studio by Linda Shaw. She is an astrologer, and she did mention earlier that 2018 will be such a fantastic year. So Linda, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now let's continue our discussion. Now, in the early 1990s, Rod Suskins predicted the tragedy in the September 11 World Trade Center in New York. He also predicted the end of Thabo Mbeki's term. He also predicted President Zuma's cabinet reshuffle in March last year. Can we categorize astrology into different segments like politics or economics, weather, socially, or is it just a blanket phenomenon that applies across the board?
You know, Rod Susskind is a fabulous astrologer. He really is, and he spends a lot of time working with what is known as mundane astrology, which is looking at specific world events. And that's a slightly different kind of astrology to the kind that I work with. So there are millions of different kinds of astrology. Every culture has its own astrology, and of course there is a focus on different aspects of astrology that you can specialize in. You can specialize in medical astrology or economic astrology or whatever it is. What I looked at was just sort of the general year ahead in terms of economics and climate and that sort of thing for today. But certainly, yeah, wherever you want to specialize, there is an astrology for that.
So what is it that you look at in order to come to a conclusion?
Well, I don't know if anybody can see this. This is a... No, not really, you can't. Anyway, this is a chart of the country, the South African country. What we look at is where the planets are positioned at the time of your first breath, so which is why we want to know as close as possible your time of birth. So we look at where you're born, the longitude and latitude, and the time of your birth. And so obviously people on the...
Okay. Please hold it up. Yeah, we'll try to zoom it in.
Yeah? Where am I holding?
Yeah, on that camera, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
okay.
Sorry.
Talk to us about this chart.
Okay, this chart, the old South Africa, the Republic of South Africa had a different chart entirely, and it was an older country. Where should I hold this? Yeah. Yeah. This is the position of the planets.
It makes absolutely no sense to me at all.
No.
Try and explain to us.
Okay. Each of these little marks on the chart, where are my fingers? Here, each of these little marks will show you one of the planets and where its position is. And each section of the chart will look at a different aspect of that individual or that country's life. So if we're looking here, if we're looking here, we're looking at the money. If we're looking here, we're looking at international relationships. You know, so different parts of the chart represent different aspects of our lives. So we can do a chart for a country or for a person or for a cat or for whatever you like, for a moment, and see what the energies are like at the time of its birth. So this will show you its soul blueprint at the time of its birth. So we created a new chart for the new South Africa when it was created in 1994. So when you think about it as a country, this is a very young energy. It's a 24-year-old country, and how many 24-year-olds do you know who look to history for advice and wisdom, who take the advice of their parents, and their parents say, look, I tried it and it didn't work for me, so I suggest you don't try. Nobody pays any attention. So a 24-year-old says, yeah, but that won't happen to me. I'll do it my own way and I'll figure it out as I go along. So we've got this sort of young, rebellious country that is moving in its own direction and trying, and the exciting thing about that is that it's willing to take risks, it's willing to explore things nobody else has ever done, and it's willing to try things in different ways instead of being stuck with the old traditions of, say, Europe or even America to some extent.
Yeah. So do you work at face value? Say, I've just met you for the first time. Would you predict my future at face value, or do you need to know me better?
No, I mean, you know, I would obviously, before you come to see me or before I meet with you, I need to know your birth date, your place of birth, and if possible, your time of birth. And if you don't have your time of birth, we need to try and work it out as close as possible. And I will work out from that your chart. Obviously, depending on your upbringing and your culture and your education, your experience of these energies will be slightly different. And the position of the planets at the time of your birth represents a sort of soul blueprint, but then the planets keep moving, so your life keeps changing and the patterns and the cycles keep changing, and we can therefore predict where the cycle is going to go to, or where it's going to, what it's going to present you with.
Okay. Now, do you also apply the same methodology in working on this chart? Say, for instance, you want to know the outlook for the country. Do you have to be politically inclined for you to come up with a decision, or rather a prediction as to what the country will look like?
I couldn't be less politically inclined myself. Obviously, it helps if you know vaguely what's going on around you. And you've read the odd newspaper. Actually, people don't read newspapers anymore. You know, you've watched the wonderful television shows.
Yeah.
But generally, you can see from looking at a chart where these energies are going, how they're going to be pushed outward. So if you're looking, for example, at international influence, it helps if you know which countries your country is involved with, so that you can have a look at specific areas. But in general, no. In general, I can look at this chart and give an idea of what's going on in the country just from looking at this.
Yeah.
Obviously, the more context you have, the better.
Right. You know, after the break, I wanna engage you on what effects solar storms and eclipses have on us. But then for now, we'll take a short break and we'll continue our conversation shortly after this. Don't go away.